Well, folks, we have a jam-packed video for you today dealing with the Nintendo Switch 2 and some other stories surrounding Nintendo, in particular, things about the Mario movie. But setting the Mario movie aside, that'll be our final story today. We're actually going to be diving into some stuff happening with review units of Nintendo Switch 2 and kind of the weirdness around there that actually is good news for YouTubers, but maybe not always the best news for consumers. We have some hardware updates as well with the Nintendo Switch 2. We have some updates on some video games and companies Nintendo works with. Look, it's a jam-packed show, and there's going to be a bunch of timestamps down below for you to jump around to this really big episode. But I want to thank you guys for being here, and I'm so thankful that you're here that we're giving away 2 Nintendo Switch 2 Mario Kart World bundles right now in the link in the description, to the top of the description, or in the pinned comment. I wish everybody luck, and you know what? Let's go ahead and dive into our first story that deals with the media and review units and something that could impact consumers on day one, especially because some people do actually like to see reviews of the games and the systems before they spend their hard-earned cash. And so let's go ahead and dive in here to this story right here. Major media outlets will not have Nintendo Switch 2 review units at launch. Plus, Grand Theft Auto 6 delay could result in 700,000 fewer console sales in 2025. That won't really impact Nintendo since they were not an announced platform for GTA 6. But I'm just throwing out there that is a story. We're going to not worry about that one, though. This is written by Christopher Dring. We're going to focus in on the actual Switch 2 news here. So press warned, no Switch 2 consoles until launch. The games press will not be receiving Nintendo Switch 2 consoles until before it comes out, or until just before, like maybe a day or two. The game business has learned. Some media have been warned they will not have their machine until launch day. Nintendo has told journalists that this is due to the requirement of a significant day one patch. It's really frustrating, said one editor. We will need to cover Switch 2 while also working across Summer Game Fest. How are we supposed to do that? Added another. Anyone who can get a hold of a console early from a dodgy retailer will have a head start in terms of coverage. I know the console will be sold out at launch, but what about all the other games? Nintendo is holding some press events for Mario Kart World, which would give journalists and critics an extended play of the upcoming video game, but the reality is there will be very few, if any, reviews of Switch 2 or its games until the machine has come out. This situation has stunned some of the third-party publishers planning Switch 2 launch titles. Key third-party launch games include Cyberpunk 2077 from CD Projekt Red, Split Fiction from EA, Civilization 7 from 2K, Hitman World of Assassination from IO Interactive, Street Fighter 6 from Capcom, and Sonic X Shadow Generations from Sega. One PR boss told me they feel they have something special for the launch of Switch 2 for those who want something else in addition to Mario Kart. But the lack of independent critical validation is going to make it very hard for us. Maybe we would have been better off waiting a few weeks. Nintendo Switch 2 has had a tricky PR ride since its reveal last month. It's faced criticism, all that stuff. Nevertheless, previews have been positive, and pre-orders have sold out worldwide. Nintendo revealed that 2.2 million people in Japan applied for the Switch 2 pre-orders, which greatly surpassed the number of units they have available. Talked about the latest financial results today. Speaking in today's episode of Business Show, of the Game Business Show, Ampere analyst games boss Piers Harding Roll said, I think being a little bit cautious, there are a lot of unknowns. The tariff situation is unknown. Nintendo makes a valid point about the higher price point affecting sales. But it seems like the right price, and I don't think it'll put people off in the first year of adopting the platform. People who are into Nintendo, who love the product and are into the brand, they'll be willing to spend that amount. Our forecast for people actually buying the console this year is a little over 13 million, which is slightly ahead of the original Switch. And he added, the argument is that you've got all these active users, so you should be selling to a bigger audience, and that will hopefully be reflected in the uptake. But we've been cautious in our forecast, and it looks like Nintendo has done the same. Nintendo forecasting 15 million. Now, what's really interesting when we look at this entire story is the fact that, review units aren't going to be going out in any sort of timely manner. Look, I think that this does hurt consumers a little bit because some need to know that day one stuff. I'm interested how it hurts game publishers per se. I know they want glowing reviews, and if they think they have something special at launch, I get it. But those reviews are still going to come, and those reviews could lead to a second wave of sales. You can get the initial launch sales, and then let's say a week later when the reviews drop, you can actually get a second wave if your game reviews very, very well. And press are saying that this is like a can't-miss experience on Nintendo Switch 2. I don't know if it's going to affect those bigger publishers, but I think something like Fast Fusion, as an example, is a launch game. Maybe they're the ones that think they have something special for Switch 2 and are like, man, maybe we should have waited a few weeks. Personally, I'm not too worried about it. I do find it interesting when game developers, and I should say game developers, game journalists do things like, man, how are we supposed to cover this thing? Well, Summer Game Fest is going on. Called priorities. You have to decide what to prioritize. Also, a lot of these publications have multiple teams. I'm just going to throw out there, I literally cover all of Summer Game Fest and all of the stuff there. I know I'm not going hands-on with the games, but still, even if I was, I would still have my day one Nintendo Switch 2 coverage. The bottom line is, this actually is good for YouTube content creators because it puts us on the same level as the press. No, I'm not getting anything for free. I'm using my hard-earned money, and I'm buying a lot of games and a lot of accessories to provide coverage of Nintendo Switch 2, things these outlets are going to get for absolutely free, even if they don't have to have access to them until day one. And it's due to a patch. And these significant day one patches on systems are nothing new. They exist across the industry. The microSD express card slot doesn't even work without the day one patch. And it's possible there are other aspects of the operating system just completely turned off until you get that day one patch. So I understand why Nintendo's doing it. Also, it prevents leaks. It prevents other nefarious things going on. Personally, I feel they're not being kind to their partners, their development partners, saying, hey, no one's going to have review units until right when it comes out. But on the flip side, I feel more for the consumers that have to potentially make purchasing decisions on day one, day two, day three, that opening weekend, without having actual reviews of the products out in the wild. This is also going to make things like my live stream all the more important. There's going to be a ton of questions you guys have about game key cards and how well this game runs and what this does and what this feature is and how's the camera work. And none of that stuff is going to be there day one. There's not going to be reviews. There's not going to be impressions. You're not going to have anything day one to help you with your purchasing decisions. So they kind of made me more relevant on day one with my 8-hour live stream where I'm answering all this stuff live and showing it live and showing comparisons of Switch 1 and Switch 2 live. So you guys are going to want to tune in for that live stream if you have any questions about Switch 2 on day one, because doesn't sound like there's going to be any information out there because Nintendo's not allowing them to have the system until the same time that I have the system. So take that for what you will. Now we got to get into another Switch 2 story here. We got a couple to get into. This one, it comes from Stealth over here. He said, Nintendo revealed there's an Easter egg in the change grip order section of the control settings. Sounds will play when you press the L and R buttons. You can even create a musical scale. So let's go ahead and rewind this so you can hear the musical scale. We'll unmute this and put it full screen. Now, people are going to take that and make music out of it, right? There's, what is there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there's 8 notes. You could definitely do some songs and some music off of that. People are going to do it. I do think that is a pretty fun one there. Just sort of a nice one. And we're going to toss this into the same section here. Nintendo has revealed that you can customize the GL and GR buttons on the Switch 2 Pro controller from the quick select menu. Now, this is kind of a smaller video here, but it gets the point across because this is obviously a phone recording. When you go into here, you go to the quick menu, you can go down to select GL, hit a button, it is set, back out, go to GR, hit a button, it is set, back out, and you're good to go. I like how quick and easy that is to do. I think that is just very, very user-friendly. And in a time when not everything is always so user-friendly, it's good to see that it's just really quick to do that quick button mapping. And now we don't know if that button mapping is saved now, so every time you go back into the game, you don't have to reset it. But we'll find out, right? More questions to answer for day one. Now, one question people are wondering is, how successful will Switch 2 be overall? It's been a popular topic of conversation on my live streams. People going like, oh, it's not going to sell 100 million, or it will sell 100 million, or this or that. We're all just kind of guessing. And the latest guess comes from WCCF Tech, where it says Nintendo Switch 2 to sell 100 million units by end of 2029 is the most important console launch ever, says DFC. So, video game industry analyst firm DFC Intelligence published an updated report on the upcoming launch of Switch 2, raising its previous sales forecast from 15 million units to 16 million units. So they're going higher than Nintendo, because they're saying by the end of 2025. Nintendo is saying 15 million by the end of the fiscal year. So they're going way more bold than Nintendo is. Now, this is based on the fact that Nintendo tends to have a conservative approach to its forecast of a new product, which is 15 million. The original Switch, Nintendo had originally estimated to sell 10 million units, but did end up selling 15 million, or roughly 15 million, in their first fiscal year. DFC believes Switch 2 could sell as many as 20 million units if the manufacturing can meet the demand for the console. But this is unlikely to happen, so they're saying 16 million, and again, that's for this year. Following the delay of Grand Theft Auto 6 to May 26, DFC thinks the Nintendo Switch 2 launch is even more critical for the industry, going as far as claiming that it's arguably the most important console launch ever. GTA 6 would have significantly propelled Sony's PlayStation 5 and Microsoft's Xbox Series, but with that factor gone for 2025, DFC now forecasts a decline in video game software sales in both North America and Europe. North America is expected to see a 2% decline in 2025, with Europe anticipated to see revenue remain flat from 2024. In the Far East, though, Japan is estimated to see a 25% uptick in console software revenue this year. That's mainly thanks to the aggressive pricing of the Switch 2, which we all know is significantly cheaper in Japan for the Japanese-only version. And you can see a nice little chart here dealing with console software revenue in the millions and future projections where you're seeing right here, slightly up a little bit, and then obviously it goes way up over the coming years to the GTA 6 and probably the growing popularity of Nintendo Switch 2. So overall, DFC Intelligence estimates that Nintendo Switch 2 could sell over 100 million units by the end of 2029, which would make it the leading console platform by far. As previously discussed in our interview with the firm founder, CEO, and principal David Cole, DFC believes Nintendo is positioned the new console as a primary gaming system and could potentially become the lead partner for several third-party partnerships. And that will be interesting to see if that is the case. If Nintendo is the market leader for 2 straight generations of their own platform, very well that companies could start to see Nintendo as a go-to place to put their game and thus take things over. Now, we have to get into some Mario Kart stuff here because I actually think this is really fascinating. We head on over here and it says the video that plays on the title screen of Mario Kart World appears to be actual gameplay as shown in the second video. You'll be able to seamlessly enter gameplay from the title screen if you choose single player. So as we rewind this back here and hit play, you're going to see some very interesting thing about this seamless single player experience. So you're sitting, you're playing, you're on the screen. Okay, you're setting your GLGR buttons, right? This is the footage Nintendo used to show that. But now look at this zoom in we're going to do from Nintendo Treehouse. It's coming up here. Oh, sorry, it's in the second piece of footage. My bad. The second piece of footage being right here. And as we look at this. It looked like they were on the screen, selected single player, and boom, we're right into the damn race. That is really cool. That is the sort of thing that you're going to see in Mario Kart World that's just so different from prior games. It's like right off the title screen, you just get right into the action with single player. Again, there's going to be a lot more new things we learn about Mario Kart World. Nintendo already confirmed the binocular thing, but we already talked about that in a video thanks to Andres Restart discovering it through some footage. So while Nintendo did put out some stuff showing it off in a Nintendo Today video, I don't think we need to revisit that story. But what we do need to visit is Ubisoft. They are in trouble, and it doesn't look like Assassin's Creed Shadows has done anything to save them. So Assassin's Creed proves to be no savior for the struggling Ubisoft. Despite the recently released Assassin's Creed Shadows being a massive success for Ubisoft, the company still continues to struggle. The French company fell back into the red for the 2024-2025 financial year thanks to disappointing sales reception for Star Wars Outlaws and the cancellation of X-Defiant, which was due to the lack of players. Ubisoft said back in March that it is creating a brand new subsidiary to help manage the company's 3 top video game franchises, Assassin's Creed, Far Cry, and Rainbow Six. As France 24 points out, it will not own the game brands, instead paying royalties to the parent company to use them. Meanwhile, Tencent has a 24% stake in the subsidiary, so the one that deals with those 3 IPs. If Ubisoft is unable to use the money Tencent invested in a meaningful way, it is certainly possible that Tencent pursues buying the firm outright. So just outright buying Ubisoft, even in the face of fierce resistance from the founding Guillemot brothers, Simuski suggested. So Look, things aren't going well at Ubisoft. They're attempting this whole stake thing. They just got an influx of cash. So they're not like going out of business anytime soon or being sold in the next like year or two. But if they don't find a way to turn this stuff around in the next few years, it is highly likely that Ubisoft is going to be a 10-cent company, for better or worse. Some people might think it's for better. Some people might think it's for worse. Now, we got to talk a little bit about some hardware features and software features and stuff like that for Switch 2. And the first one comes over here from Oatmeal Dome. It says it will be possible to lock the console with a pin. You will be prompted for the pin when the console wakes up from sleep mode. So very common feature. We have this on Xbox and PlayStation, and now it's going to be on Switch and probably Switch 2. I assume it'll be added to Switch as well. They're kind of using a very similar operating system. So, yeah, I think that just makes a lot of sense. And honestly, I get why it's happening. Speaking of hardware, though, we got to get into this point. We forgot to bring this up yesterday. This comes from Digital Foundry, and I apologize for posting Central Leaks here. Central Leaks is being extremely negative on Switch 2, which is fine, hence the clown emoji. He says, this has now been confirmed. They're talking about variable refresh rate not being in docked mode. So moving on to the display, again, this does come from Digital Foundry. There's not much to add here to the Nintendo specification. It's a 7.9-inch wide color gamut LCD with a 1080p resolution and support for HDR10 and variable refresh rate up to 120 hertz. An additional detail that hasn't been disclosed is that it's a 10-point multi-touch capacitive touchscreen, and that's the exact same as Switch 1's. Something that is important to clarify is that as far as Switch 2 developers are concerned, variable refresh rate is indeed a function of the internal display only, and there is no support at all right now for variable refresh rate over HDMI. The best theory we have for this is the dock's DisplayPort to HDMI converter doesn't support standard HDMI variable refresh rate. But whatever is the cause, we would hope that Nintendo can provide some sort of solution in due course. It sounds like it just won't have it at launch. Nintendo could have an update or dock update or something in the future that maybe enables it. Maybe there's some bugginess with it. It's hard to know. And we're not done with the little tech updates because we have this coming over from Nash Weedle being translated here by Thunderstash, gaming friend of the channel. You guys know the big stash man. It says Leak Express. Switch 2 specs are leaking, but there are details that haven't been shared yet. One of them is that Switch 2's DLSS is ready to be updated. And from what I've been able to investigate, it seems that its first update will arrive before the end of the year. So we've already seen that DLSS is doing some impressive things in Street Fighter and Cyberpunk to the point that Digital Foundry couldn't even tell there was anything going on with DLSS. They thought nothing was using it. Turns out games are using DLSS to the point they can't even recognize if it's using it. So that already means the DLSS technology is working great. And apparently there'll be an update before the end of the year to make it even better. So that's always exciting. Next up, we have to talk about mouse support on the Super Nintendo app, which you might want to know about because there's a certain game on Super Nintendo a lot of people want to see come back. Mouse support on Nintendo's SNES NSO app received a lot of interesting updates last year, possibly to prepare for the SNES mouse games playable with the Switch 2 mouse. This comes off a Tumblr from Luigi Blood. He is a popular person over at FamiBoards who data mines and knows his stuff. Last September, this Tumblr account data mined the latest NSO updates and found that the SNES mouse support had received a lot of updates between February and August 2024. SNES mouse support was always available in the app, but initially enabled only for 3 specific unidentified game IDs. Early in the app's life, it replaced game ID checks with game metadata to determine mouse support. Full details are at the blog, but here's the TLDR. There are now code to configure the behavior of the SNES mouse between either original or something else. The blog from September 2024 notes it means there's looking into ways to support SNES mouse in different, possibly more accessible ways than using a USB mouse. Mouse emulation is now supported on both controller ports. Previously, it was only on port 1. This gave Nintendo the ability to add mouse support to more than just mouse-only titles. Example, Mario Paint, as some games may use the mouse on a second port instead, leaving the first SNES controller plugged in so they could play with either. Internal support for input replays of SNES mouse devices was also added. Obviously, we don't know about the Switch 2 mouse when this was written, but the timing and nature of the updates definitely seems to have heavily hinted at Mario Paint and other SNES mouse games possibly being on the way, and I totally agree. Mario Paint, I think, is a given at this point. There's a handful of other mouse games as well. I suspect all of them to be coming over. And the last bit of news we got to get into, I told you, we got to talk about the Mario movie. You guys probably heard already, but we talked about it on the podcast as well last night, so we won't spend too much time here. But the Mario movie sequel is titled Super Mario World. This was literally in NBC Universal's article. Unfortunately, they deleted it, but you can see it here. An exciting range of films from Universal Pictures, Focus Features, DreamWorks Animation, and Illumination were presented, including Mega Man 2.0, Nobody 2, Bad Guys 2, How to Train Your Dragon, Downtown Abbey, the grand finale, Black Phone 2, Him, The Phoenician Scheme, Super Mario World, Shrek, and Minions. Obviously they retracted the Super Mario World. I don't think that's how Nintendo wanted the title to be revealed, even though NBC Universal literally is a subsidiary company that works for all these companies. They're all under the same umbrella. That's not how Nintendo wanted it out there. So that's pretty official when NBC Universal posted that that's probably the actual name of the game. Gosh, so used to talking about Mario games. The Mario movie. It looks like obviously featuring Yoshi, some major way. The Cape's coming back most likely, and who knows where the story is going to go. But I'm really excited for the Mario movie. It looks like it's going to be fantastic. I suspect we'll see the first trailer in September for the 40th anniversary of Mario, along with an announcement for a new 3D Mario game. And maybe even an announcement of Luigi's Mansion 4, and who knows what else. So I'm really looking forward to September just because it is the 40th anniversary, and I don't think Nintendo's going to skip over the 40th for Mario. They make so much Mario content, it's really easy to theme a bunch of stuff around that 40th anniversary. And there's that upcoming movie, right? Just like next year's the 40th anniversary of the Legend of Zelda series. And we know there's a Zelda movie coming in early 2027. So there's probably going to be some stuff themed around the 40th anniversary for Zelda next year, probably in the second half of next year, even though the anniversary is in February. That being said, folks, I am Nathaniel Rufflechance from Nintendo Prime. Let me know what you think about all of this news. I think a lot of it is really exciting and really interesting to talk about. Give me your thoughts down below, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.